All right, it's 5 o'clock, so we'll get started. Call to order the regular board meeting of the Kittitas County Public Hospital District Number 1 Board of Commissioners. It is April 28th, 2022. Can we start with a roll call meeting?
Erica Libanow,
Here.
Matt Altman,
Here.
Bob Davis,
Here.
Terry Clark,
Here.
Don Ward,
Here.
Julie Peterson,
Here.
Scott Olander,
Here.
Vicky Machero,
Here.
Dr. Martin,
Here.
Dr. O'Brien,
Here.
Rhonda Holden,
Here.
Michelle Whirl,
Here.
Amanda Scott,
Here.
Jeff Yamada,
Here.
Ron Erlacher.
Here.
Looks like that is everyone that's on there.
We are expecting Mandy Olson and Stacy Olea, so.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome, everybody. First item is the approval of the agenda. We're gonna move motion to approve the agenda.
I second.
Moved by Bob and seconded by Terry. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes.
I moved to approve the consent. agenda.
All right, it's been moved by John,
I second it.
seconded by Terry to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. All right, well, that was speedy. Now we are at public comment and announcements. If you have a comment, please state your name and address, and please keep your comment to 3 minutes or less. And please be advised that we do not respond to public comment in open session. Anybody? All right, looks like we do not have a public comment. So that takes us to Mr. Matt Ellsworth, Executive Director of the Association of Washington Public Hospital Districts, to discuss levies. Welcome.
Great. Thank you for having me today. Again, I'm Matthew Ellsworth. I'm the Executive Director of Association of Washington Public Hospital Districts. I know you have in your packet a little bit of who we are and what we do. I've met some of you in person before. Some of you I've seen online as participants in our governance education that we've done throughout the years. We represent just the public hospital districts in the state. I don't have to tell you that public hospital districts, you operate under a little different world than the rest of hospitals out there. And so together in our association, we work very hard to help mitigate and solve and help you through some of those extra challenges that you have as PhDs. And so we, together with WISHA, Washington Hospital Association, we're sister organizations. We share a lot of resources, and they solve hospital problems. I solve PhD problems. I won't take too much more time on that, but I want to take a little bit of time, and can I get you to hit that? Or are we already bid? Okay. I wanted to visit with you a little bit today about the nature of, and for today, I'm going to talk about levies in your hospital district. Some would say this is the benefit of being a public hospital district. You take on all these other restrictions and challenges with how you have to operate your facility, but the benefit is you can go to your community and ask for support in a way that other hospitals can't. And so throughout the state of Washington, we have a variety of public hospital districts. We have some that have no levies. We have some that have different types, and we have some that have renewed through, some that lift, and we're going to talk a little bit about the different kinds that are out there. And I know this group, you are contemplating some of those ideas and looking to learn about that. So my discussion today, we're going to walk through a little bit about what that means to your community, how to interface and interact with your community as you look to make those decisions, and how to listen to your community. What's the most effective way to pass them? I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the do's and don'ts. That's probably the #1 call I get during election time is and we're going to have some quizzes and interaction here about what can I and do and not do as an elected official when we're come down to an election time. And then some resources as we go forward. By way of background, before I got into the public hospital business, I ran the campaign of 2 current United States senators. And my background comes from campaigns and elections. And so I've got real passion in how we work in these issues. The other thing I'm going to start off saying is that this is a public meeting. And we have to be very careful. We're going to talk about the difference between advocacy and education. And so when I talk about levies and putting them on the ballot, you're going to hear me say things like, if you choose to go out and support or oppose, because I don't want you taking positions in a public meeting. And we're going to talk about why you can't do that. So we're going to fly it a little bit around here. Let me start off with where we are as public hospital districts in the levy and bond world. We're not very good at it. Less than 20% of levies and bonds passed over the past 5 years. And by the way, if you need me to speak up or slow down, or please raise your hand.
Hey, Matt,
Yeah,
20% just for, these are all ballot measures, not necessarily related to hospitals.
PhD ballot measures. And so this is pretty terrible. And then the real gut punch is when we do lose, PhDs tend to lose by less than 3%. That is razor thin. When you turn on CNN and you hear there's a new poll from Bloomberg, the margin of error is usually 5%. So we're just barely losing. And in many communities, and the community of your size, that 3% is a few hundred votes at most. And so when I talk about engaging your community, it's building back and making up for that 3%. Ballot fatigue. I tell the story of when Arnold Schwarzenegger ran for governor of California, there were 4 pages of just governor's candidates. And I went to a campaign school after that election, and statistically, they discovered Arnold Schwarzenegger got a 5% boost in votes. Do you know why?
First page.
His name was longer than the rest, just because it stuck out further. What do I mean by ballot fatigue? The PhD ballot's the last one on the page. So when you get your ballot in the mail and you've got pages upon pages upon pages, how do you get your community interested and engaged enough to get all the way to the end of the ballot? Typically, more than 30% of voters will drop off before the last page. So it's important that when we talk about the value of this and the importance of the measure, it's getting them to that last page. And finally, who the heck are these people? Now, all of you are highly elected officials. You've all been outfitted with your togas, but the reality is most folks in your community don't know what a PhD is, and they don't even know that you are one. I'll give you an example. We just went to a community that's looking to do a very large bond, and they went and did a community poll. And when that poll came back, 34% of their community thought that they were a for-profit hospital. The majority of the people in that poll thought that they were a nonprofit hospital. Almost nobody recognized that it was actually a publicly owned hospital. This has some assets to you, but it's also a challenge. Again, it's your benefit of being a PhD is that you get to ask for this, but then you also have to remind people that they have an ownership stake in you. And we're going to talk more about that too. But ballot fatigue and who are these people are 2 really big factors into why we tend to do as poorly as we do in elections. So let's talk a little bit about the evolution of an election. And you're saying, now, wait a minute, we haven't even decided if we want to do this. The reason I want to walk through this a little bit is that forecasting of your opportunities. And the first thing that we'd like to do is choose your date. You don't have to pick what your ballot measure is going to be yet, but when do you want to go to your voters? And then you need to work backwards. If you want to go to your voters in November in a year where, again, ballot fatigue, there's lots of pages. Do you want to go in April when there's a school bond in a fire district at the same time? You're right, you don't. But these are all things to consider, because once you pick that date, you start working backwards not just technically, because if you're in November, you have to pass your resolution in August, but also how do you build the infrastructure around that listening and execution of what you can and can't do to support that levy or not support that levy. And so choosing that date is very important. There are some benefits that we can come back and talk about to picking which date. But also, if you're going to be somebody would say, well, Matt, is this November too soon for us to go to our voters this coming November? And I would tell you absolutely not. There's a whole population of PhDs that are having that discussion right now, and I expect them to be. Now, I would not wait to do this work we're going to talk about until September, because again, we're going to work backwards a little bit here. So now that you've chosen the date and you said, you know what, let's start talking about November of this year. The next work is the pre-work. And this is, first of all, the scoping. You need to decide, first of all, what your needs are and what you want to do. How much do you need? But most importantly, a lot of this is the listening and surveying of your community. What is their tolerance? Will they accept a 10-cent increase versus a 50-cent increase? I encourage folks, as you're thinking about this, hold town halls. Survey your community. You as an organization can use public funds to go out and you can hire somebody to come and survey. Now, that may not be a right fit for you, and it may be. That's something for you to decide, and you can take some advice on. But you really need to listen and show that you're listening before you make that decision. Because not only is it going to demonstrate to your community the thoughtfulness of what you're doing, but it's going to also help you get it right. And you may go out and start listening to your community and holding those listening sessions, talking to your employees, talking to your friends and family, and they may overwhelmingly say to you, no way, don't do this. And if that's what you're hearing, you should probably listen. Now, as a campaigner, I believe in campaigns. So if you're 50-50, well, that's why it's called a campaign, because you launch a campaign and then you get it over 50. But it's really important to spend this time scoping and listening to that so your community knows that you get it right and you hit that target. Yes, Matt.
Matt, are there places where the immediate response is not, I don't want any new taxes at all, stay away from me?
Absolutely.
There are places like that somewhere.
Where they're ultimately successful, you mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, I know that there are some that are successful, but it seems like the initial response would probably just be, we don't need any more new tax.
So I'm going to hold that if you'll let me, because
Yeah.
we're going to talk about some messaging that works a little later.
Okay,
And the number one question we have is about taxes. And how do we overcome that and show value? We're going to come back to that if you'll allow me.
yeah, no problem, thanks.
And then the last part of that pre-work is you as an organization need to decide what kind of levy do you want? Previously, AWPHD, and I know some of you have watched it, we produced a campaign and elections webinar. If you haven't watched it, I encourage you to do that. We brought in political consultants to give you some ideas on how to do it. We brought in some legal experts. There's a discussion in there about what kind of levy do you want? Do you want a one-time levy? Do you want permanent ongoing? Do you want permanent ongoing renewable? There's actually a menu of about 4 different kinds in there. And this is where you need to take legal counsel and really understand the difference between the two. To put it in very basic terms, the difference between them, what that means is how often do you have to go to your voters to ask for it again? And then what are that? And then what is your cap? So if you set it at this rate, when can you go to your voters again to raise it again or to keep it maintaining at that same level? And then there's also within the type you choose, you need to understand what you need to tell your voters. Believe it or not, some levies, you have to be very, very specific. You have to say, we will be using the money for this, this, and this. And some of them can be very general in operation in nature. So that's also part of the scoping work for you to do. Build a support group. Who else is going to be engaged in this? Next, we're going to talk about the do's and don'ts will play into this, but have an understanding about who's got your back in the community. Are you going it alone? Who else has an interest in supporting your hospital in this passing? Understand some of that as you start working toward that election. Build a traveling roadshow. Once it's on the ballot, you need to go out and educate anybody that will listen. I used to work for the governor of Idaho, and he said, Ellsworth, if someone's cat dies, I want you at the funeral. That should be your attitude when you have a ballot measure. Anybody that will listen, you need to go talk to them. And then finally, and we'll come into this, is GOTV means get out the vote. How do you get people to the last page of the ballot? How do you get enough people participating so that you breach that 3% wall that I talked about? Now, this next section is very important. This is the do's and don'ts, and we're gonna have a little fun here. If I could give you one headline, it is no use of district resources. And so what does that mean? If your email ends in the same email as this hospital, you can't use that email to say vote yes. You can educate, but you can't advocate. If someone comes to you in the grocery store and says, this stinks, I really don't like this. In that grocery store, you can tell them, you know what, you need to vote for this, you need to vote against this, anything you want. But if they come in here to this meeting, in this room, in a public meeting and say, this stinks, all you can do is listen. And so there's a difference there. District resources are email, printers. Email is probably the biggest one we hit. Technology. We have a sheet prepared. We have a toolkit on our website of all of this stuff, by the way. And I love to show this because it has the things you can do and things you can't do. The things you can do are a lot longer than the things you can't. And that's really important to understand. I will tell you the biggest difference of ballot measures passing and not is whether or not commissioners engage. There is this myth that exists in politics, not just in Washington, but all over America, that since you're a toga wearing highly elected officials, that once you put it on the ballot, you can't do anything. It's on the ballot, I'm an elected official, it's the voter's choice. I'm here to tell you that that is patently not true. And so who is the most recent one elected here? Terry, did you campaign for yourself?
Yes.
Yes, you did. So why can't you campaign for a levy measure? It's no different.
Oh, it's no different.
I tell people that you're no different than Jay Inslee. When there's a ballot measure, an initiative, Jay Inslee goes on a TV ad and advocates for it. Now, he doesn't do it from his governor's office, but he still engages. And you can do that. One of my pop quiz questions is, you write a letter to the editor supporting or opposing the levy. Can you sign it, Bob Davis, Hospital District Commissioner? Can you use your title?
Super good question.
Absolutely, you can. It's your title. The people of this district bestowed it upon you. This room, if you have an advocacy group working on your behalf, do you let anyone in the community use this room, or is it exclusive to the hospital? If Rotary wanted to come into this room, can they use it?
Yes.
So your campaign, yes, on ballot measure 2, they can use this room.
Similarly, if somebody wanted to have an anti-campaign, we could also use the room. Is that what I'm?
As long as they follow the public access rules, anybody can use it. If one side asks and the other side doesn't, so what? Shame on the other side for not asking. Now, I would not go out and say, hey, come use our room, come use our room.
Anybody want?
But my point is that it's those things that are open to the public are open to the public. I get asked about yard signs and bumper stickers all the time. Can you have a bumper sticker on your pickup and park it out in this parking lot that says vote yes or no?
That's reasonable.
Absolutely you can. Now, can you have a 10 by 10 piece of plywood sign that you park in the parking lot all month? No, you can't. It's a reasonable standard, but your ability to engage and go out and advocate is important. You should be out talking to community groups. You should go to the Chamber of Commerce and stand up and say, I want you to vote for or against this. We have a lot of questions about hospital staff. and how you behave during these times. So can you as a staff get together at lunch in the cafeteria and collude about how to pass this levy? Well, not officially, you can't. There's actually one exception to that rule, it's political activity, and it's actually unions. But now, can you open up this room and have a presentation at lunch where you teach people about the levy? That says, here's what it means to your tax bill, because you're employees, you live here, you care about your tax bill. Absolutely, you can. You just can't say, go out and vote yes or no. Yes.
Can you explain why employees on their free time, so during lunch, can't meet in a publicly available space to discuss it?
They can, it can't be organized by the hospital.
Gotcha. They can organize it amongst themselves.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Now, if they want to organize in this room and say, we want to learn about this levy, Madam Chair, will you come and teach us about this? Julie, will you come and present? You sure can. You just can't say at the end, don't forget to vote yes. That's really the
Say
kicker.
don't forget to vote.
You can say, don't forget to vote. You cannot say vote yes or no. And so that's where that public resource comes in. We at AWPHD, the what if questions never stop. If you, I guarantee you we've heard it before, which is okay. We want you asking those questions. We want you to be compliant. One of the, other than the myth of we're elected officials, so we can't engage in these things. The other issue is, and I get this, nobody likes politics. And if you have an issue that's of controversy in your community, you know, why do I want to go to church this Sunday and get someone poking their finger in my chest about this stuff? Folks, that's what leadership is. And you going out and engaging is leadership. And if you put this on the ballot, you're already on public record about how you feel about this. So I want you to carry that into your community going forward. This is a very extensive body of work behind this simple slide that is part of our tool book. And if it's not on that list, you can give us a call anytime and we will tell you. So let me tell you a little bit about that 3%. Things that work, things of why ballot measures pass. Community ownership, just like why do retired folks vote for school bonds? They don't have kids in school. It's because you want smart kids in your community. Same thing with a hospital. You vote for your hospital district because you want healthy people and access to care. Time and time again, I have a recent poll that just shows me this again, is that people are very proud of their hospitals. I won't tell you who, but this last hospital we just polled, which is pretty close to your size, they came back with an approval rating of over 75% in their community. Right now, their community loves them. Communities really appreciate hospitals right now, and there's a lot of water in that well. And so one of the messages we like to use is that, again, they don't understand you're a PhD. They kind of see that tax bill line, but understand that ownership piece, that they help fund this place. They keep the doors open. And if they value you to 75% approval rating, so why wouldn't you put a few shekels towards it? Demonstrate value. We're good stewards of your money. We haven't abused your money in the past. And we've shown you that we run a good operation. You would be surprised how much the voting population pays attention to that. They want to make sure that you're using the money right. And that's worth demonstrating each and every time. There was well, I'll come to that. So engagement, I talked about engaging of yourself, engaging in your community. One of the do's and don'ts is if you have a hospital foundation, can your hospital foundation use foundation funds to print the yard signs to say vote yes or no?
I feel like they can, and that's why you're asking us.
Absolutely, they can. Can you, as commissioners, sit on a campaign committee that exists outside of these four walls that's run by the foundation or a different, Citizens for Healthcare. Can you personally sit on that committee? They raise money, they spend money, they buy signs that say vote yes or no. Absolutely, you can. Just don't be sending them emails from your public commissioner email, and don't be printing flyers here in the building. And so engage those other community groups to help you. This is very key to the success, because all those things that you can't do on the do not list, that group can do. And now you can't coordinate that here in official meetings, but you can participate, you're citizens at the end of the day. Leveraging trust. Again, going back to that 75%. If folks trust this organization, ask them to keep trusting you. Trust in your leadership, trust in your voters, and then trust other organizations. You have other organizations in this community that has run levy measures. Understand what that meant for them, watch them, go back and look at what they did. Why did they pass? Why did they not? And if they passed, ask them for advice. Community advocates, I just touched on that a little bit. I'll give another antidote. We had on the do list. So you are allowed as a PhD to send one piece of mail to every voter with PhD public funds. That piece of mail, again, it can educate, it cannot advocate. You can say in there, the election is this day. I advise you to have legal counsel take a quick look at it before you send it. You can say in there what you're going to do with the money. You can talk about what you've done with the money you have. And you can use funds. Any other regular means of communication that you have, you can also use. So if you do, say, a quarterly magazine, if it's already established, you can have articles in that. Again, educating, not advocating. Social media, same rules apply. Now, the one thing I always get asked here is, so someone comes on our Facebook page and says, "You jerks, I can't believe you're doing this." Let it go. Because you can't engage yes or no, you can educate. Now, if someone on your Facebook, I wouldn't recommend you do this, by the way. Somebody on your Facebook page says, you slugs are just going to use the money to buy new Cadillacs for commissioners. And you can go back and say, well, we've agreed upon those things we can say as a group that are on the education sphere, and say, no, here's what we're going to use the money for, sir or madam. You can do that. But those other groups can send different pieces of mail. They can print the signs, they can do all of that. We had a community that had a postcard they sent out to their voters, and it listed every taxing district in the county, and it had them right in the middle. And I looked at this and I said, so your message to the voters is it could be worse. Think about the kinds of messages you put out. Just because you can't be advocates doesn't mean you can't be strategic. What loses? Again, it could be worse. The end is near. The doomsday scenario loses every time. If you don't pass this, we're going to cut services. If you don't pass this, grandma's going to die. I have seen it all, and that message never works. It tends to be a go-to because it's motivating, and you're, wow, this is really going to scare me into voting. I'm here to tell you it doesn't work. As I say, they want to live life through the windshield, not the rearview mirror. Give them something to look forward to. Here's what we're going to do and build and grow. That recent poll with this other district, which I can't share with you because it's public information, when they talked about what their community wants out of this money, and the things that community wants are all new forward-looking things. Complacency, putting it on the ballot and hoping for the best, never wins. And I would say this is the number one thing PhDs do, because they don't want to go door to door. They don't want to do the hard work. And they've fallen into this trap of commissioners their hands are tied, when again, they're not. And then go it alone. A little bit what I just said. You throw it on the ballot, you let the voters decide. You don't have community partners that are supporting you. You don't have other advocacy groups that are out there talking about you. You don't have a traveling road show and you're just hoping for the best that's gonna pass. Again, that never works either. I'm gonna wrap up here and then we'll have a discussion. Here's some of the resources to know. Again, I mentioned AWPHD and our election toolkit. MRSC, I know some of you are familiar with them. MRSC, they will provide you some competent legal advice. They're not going to review your mailer for you, but what they're going to do is tell you those do's and don'ts. They're going to help you with the what ifs just as much as I will. I'll be upfront with you. You may ask me a what if question. Half the time I turn around and ask MRSC. And they'll also help you with the commission process. Okay, so we've chosen this kind of levy. How do we do it? What's the mechanics? What's our ballot language? What's our timing of all of that? And they will help you with that as well. And then finally, your county auditor. I would invest some time visiting with your county auditor, understanding about what are the thresholds you need to meet. How many votes means a pass or a fail. Go and ask your county auditor, who else is thinking about this on the ballot? You can go ask your auditor to say, would you show me the results of the last 4 levies for special purpose districts? Again, libraries, fire, schools, cities, counties, and the rest. And then there's just some good conversation to be had. You're going to learn a lot about the nature of your constituency and the rest. So with that, I'm going to leave that up there so you can take a few notes there, but that's the end of my slides. And I'd open it up for any discussion or comments you have, Erica. Yes.
So first of all, that was a fantastic meaty presentation, so thank you for that. What would you say is?
By the way, real quick, this presentation.
Yes.
Mandy can send it to you. It's just a web link online. Since it is live online, I change it sometimes, but we'll make sure you have a copy of that.
Very much. What would you say is the riskiest area of crossover between advocacy and education where districts might slip up? Meaning well, but accidentally cross that line?
I think that it's the incoming questions you get on your commissioner email.
Okay.
When folks email, and look, you're doers, you're leaders. You did this because you want to help and you want to answer questions. And when someone asks you a question, you want to give them an answer. And so it's keeping in mind that, how do I answer this in a way that's educational? My recommendation to you is that if you go forth with the levy measure, you develop a message sheet that says, these are the facts, or a fact sheet about the issue. And what you will find is a well-developed fact sheet. Most questions you'll be able to pull an answer to that. And then that keeps you out of that advocacy round. They're emailing you on your KVH email because they don't know any better. Now you can say, I'm sorry if you feel it's too political. Now someone might say, hey jerks, I hate this. You can say, thank you, appreciate your opinion. That's no different than public comment. I wouldn't engage in I love this and this should pass because. What you can say is, well, here are some facts about, they may say, again, you guys are getting Cadillacs. Well, actually, we're not getting Cadillacs. We're expanding our cancer care unit or whatever you may call.
Okay.
That's probably one to get very good question. I will say, and this will happen, again, that getting scared into the foxhole is that when you write a letter to the editor and you sign it, Terry Clark, PhD commissioner, someone is going to complain. And someone's going to come to you and say, how dare you do that? I guarantee you it is going to happen to you. I go back to, that's what leadership is. You're following the rules, you're doing what you should. There's always folks that don't like the nature of public officials campaigning in your free time in a non-public atmosphere. You can still do that, but I'm here to tell you, you're going to get that. And you'll be okay.
Can you give us a few scenarios, like in our situation? I mean, the organization has been very good stewards of what resources we have. And, we get, I think, a little bit less than $8,000 a year for our whole district as part of our levy. When our good friends up north are getting $800,000 a year as a permit. $1.5 million, so twice that. Right. How would, but yet, like, we're just good stewards and we're
Victim
not-
of your own success.
Yeah, so, but yet, to get back on par where the rest of the state, really the rest of the region, tri-state area is, most hospital districts
Right.
have like a levy that's significantly more than what we have. How would you approach that?
Right, and Matt,
Ideas, just some,
yeah, and Matt, I'll also answer your question from earlier too. I think one of the things where you could address that is that, one, I think that it's widely understood that providing healthcare is getting more and more complicated and expensive. What I would not do is compare yourself to other people. Your folks, they don't go to that other hospital, they don't know what that looks like, and they don't care. I think it is important to say, demonstrate that you have been good stewards of your money, but show them what you're gonna do with it. And say, these are the things that without this, we couldn't do. We couldn't do this without you, and we need your help. And I think people understand that. When you show the value of this money is gonna help us do more for you and your community, that makes sense to them. I think the fact that you are so low, I go back to that polling that I told you earlier, that they believe that hospitals are all for profit and rich. There's people in this community who are gonna believe the same thing. You have a beautiful building. And you're gonna have to overcome that. So you're saying, look, we're not doing this to be greedy, we're doing this to actually provide and service you more. And I think that overcomes that. Let me answer the anti-tax question. We get this all the time. One, go back to what I said about the school board, because you want a smart community. And I think that even though when you do have a levy for a PhD, it's one of the lower levies on your tax bill, I think it's just demonstrating that value.
you should say lowest.
But you can say that too. And by the way, that's educational, that's not advocacy, we're saying. And so, Matt, I think it makes the bar a little higher with your community. I'm here to tell you it's worth doing, and if you demonstrate the value, you'll overcome that. And we are not taxing you just to tax. And I would never use the term tax. They are investing in the future of healthcare of this community. This is an investment people are taking out of their pocket to make it better for the community. Yes, Terry.
Years ago, we had a levy to expand our ICU and CCU. And we had a group in our community that said this hospital should never have those services. Do you see that type of things in levies at all? That this hospital shouldn't have those services, that the services should be someplace else and they shouldn't be in this community? I mean, the levy did pass, but I just thought that was
Sure.
really interesting that this is a hospital and they shouldn't have an ICU and a CCU. There was a group.
I would say this, after working for Congress for 10 years. There's always a certain membership in the United States Congress, they go to work every day and they put the brick on the no button and they walk out. And that's what you're facing.
Yeah.
That element will always exist, and you're gonna see it again. No matter how far-fetched some of the arguments may be and nonsensical that doesn't make sense, you don't want an ICU. But I think it's important for you as commissioners, listen to their voice, take it into consideration. And they're voters like anybody else. Give them the facts, and the facts may not sway them, and it may. If an outside group is engaging in advocacy, they may convince that person, they may not. But those can be rabbit holes sometimes. But I found every community just has that brick on the no button.
Thank you.
I'm probably running out of time here. I know you got a full agenda, so as you make your decision, I'm always happy to come back and talk more. If you want to talk about other resources to help you make that decision, happy to do so. Julie's got my cell phone, and happy to share it with any of you as you make this decision and have one-on-one conversations as well. So
I have Matt on speed dial.
I want to say the most surprising part when you said November is that, this November, is that enough time, or is that too soon? And I thought you were saying, well, of course that's too soon.
no way.
Yeah, so that
No
was.
So
extremely
technically
surprising.
for November, you have to pass a resolution in August.
Okay,
But when you start working backward, And if you start doing the technical work now, then the technical work, what I mean is that what kind of levy, and start listening to your folks.
Yeah.
And I think that you can listen to folks and have all that done by mid-July. And then once you've made that decision, pulling together those understanding the landscape of those other groups out there happens pretty quick.
Can I use 4 more minutes of your time here?
Hey, I got all night.
Nuts and bolts. I'm assuming you have model resolution language you can help.
Yes, and the ballot language is very simple. The resolutions, we have templates, cut paste.
On the hospital side, are lid lifts always permanent? I know EMS levies can be temporary or permanent. Are hospitals always permanent?
No, they're not.
Okay,
Hospitals, just like the EMS, like I said, there's a menu about 5 different, you can have a temporary, you can have permanent, ongoing. I'm probably jumbling some of that language there, but
Okay.
there's a
There's
variety of
options.
them.
Okay. A more general question, can you talk a little bit about A2A PhD's plans for governance education as we come out of?
You bet, happy to. So as I mentioned, you had that webinar. I'd encourage you to watch on levies and elections. This year, we have a whole host of new governance education opportunities. I'd ask you to take advantage of those. We have an online system. I know some of you have been certified before in good governance. If you haven't, I encourage you to do so and to keep looking at that. We have an opportunity coming up at the end of, so this year we're going to have webinars just on purchasing and contracting for commissioners and staff to learn more about. We're going to have one just on public information. How do you provide it? What are your obligations, both for staff and for commissioners? And then coming up in probably mid-July, we're going to have an opportunity for all of you to hear from and visit with the state auditor, which is a great opportunity. Again, something specific and unique to PhDs. So, and if you have a topic that you would like to get together and learn more as a board, let me know. We engage with boards on strategic planning. We do retreats with boards as well. So we'll always create new content if somebody needs it.
And I just want to make a pitch for A2B PhD, and Matt had mentioned MRSC. That is no charge to us, so it's part of the dues that the benefit that we get from paying dues. It's an excellent resource for questions about, staying in the lane in terms of being a public hospital district, and also to thank A2B PhD. As we went into the lockdown, it was really difficult to navigate that. How do you conduct a public meeting? And A2B PhD did a lot of groundwork for us on that. And as the conditions changed, they came back and helped us adjust as well. So it's been really valuable during
Thank you.
the pandemic.
And beginning in June with MRSC, AWPHC is hosting a webinar just on the new remote meeting and the new agenda laws that came out of this session. So you get opportunity to learn more about that too.
One more question. So that would say, would someone do a levy now, say if you're thinking, hey, in 12 years, we're gonna need a new hospital, right? Versus like, do districts do that knowing that we want to save up some money so that we don't have to hit the community, with this
Sure.
burden?
Well, most capital projects are done through bonds because of the sheer size of them. I think it would be difficult and not knowing your levels, but again, making some assumptions here. I think the amount of money you get from a levy, I would set your expectations for what that's going to be. And probably if you have a new levy and you save that money for 5 years, you're still probably not going to cover the cost of a new capital facility. There are some rules, again, depending on what kind of levy you choose, that gives you, some give you more flexibility than others, but generally capital projects go through the bonding process.
Our last one was a capital improvement that matured out, I think 3 years ago or something.
18.
Yeah,
Just trying to get into that.
I would spend some
we-
time understanding the difference between those and pick what's right for you. But I'm also sensitive to, hey, we're going to ask our community for money and we know may have to do it again in the future. It's also a lot of folks, once they have a levy or a bond, they'll go back and do a replacement so the tax bill doesn't change. Not another thing very common in all special purpose districts.
Play that, say that again.
So if you have an active bond right now and you're getting a tax payment, and let's say my payment is $20.
Yep. Yeah, I see. what you're
Yeah, and the debt pays off, you renew it, you keep paying the $20. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it and have a great meeting.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, we're going to hop back. I see we have some new people in the audience here at the meeting, so we're gonna hop back to public comment and announcement and offer them a chance to speak. So if you would like to speak, please state your name, your address, and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. And please be advised that we do not respond to public comment in public session.
This is the time for public comment?
Yes.
Okay, great.
So if you could, we'll need you to speak up. We have people on Zoom who are also attending via Zoom. So if you can speak loudly and clearly enough for everybody to hear.
Okay. Sure. Had some handouts here. Yeah, sure. My name is Michael Barrow, and I ran for hospital commissioner.
And sorry to interrupt. Name and address.
Oh, yeah,
and then we'll
address.
continue.
Address is 110 West. Okay.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay, good. Yeah, 111 West Sixth Avenue, PMB 290, 180, Ellensburg. So I ran for office, and my opponent was Erica, got a exciting race. And my issues were based on, my race was an issues race. And they're fairly well outlined there. And I was advocating for a lot of reform issues of the hospital. And a lot of it came out of dissatisfaction from the community. If you look at the Yelp and the Google ratings are pretty low. And I got a lot of support. And even though I lost the race, I've worked in government and lobbying enough to know, and I've been encouraged to continue the effort for these issues. And in the form of setting up a political action committee and advocating for these issues and moving them forward and working with the commissioners and the staff to advance these issues. They're very important. Some of the highlighted ones are getting a detox center into the community that's desperately needed, getting a mental health facility into the community under the hospital, which is desperately needed. Funds are available for that coming up. Getting performance audits of the staff here, not financial audits, but performance audits. Getting better pain management. Currently, we have by the providers. Currently, we have bad pain management. We're kicking people away that have pain issues, and they're going to the streets, and they're then at the disposal of the cartels right now in our community, and they're consuming artificial drugs with fentanyl and dying. And that's unacceptable. And we can reverse that as a health community by correcting that. It's been corrected in other areas. They've run, the providers have run away from this issues, and it's causing deaths. We got to work to correct that very soon, including getting fentanyl testing kits out in the community. So as a priority, it's first things first. These are the first things. Capital improvements are not the first thing. So your proposal on a capital improvement is secondary to getting a detox center and mental health facilities and some of the other things in here. So we would say, first things first, and these things are the most important things for the health of our community. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to working with all of you one-on-one and with the PAC that will be formed
Thank you.
and working these issues through. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, I'm
I'm sorry.
Lauren Monahan. 1001 South Chestnut, number 314, Ellensburg. I live at Briarwood. I know that there are 3 heroin dealers also living there. Management's working with it, but it's there and people are going there. People, I'm 71 and people my age and older are buying heroin because they've been kicked off pain management. Now, and that's compassion. Compassion when people do come into the hospital is really needed, whatever they come in for. But, oh, it's been really hard to see that happening in a place I felt safe. Now I have 2 security cameras outside my apartment. Oh, that's all I want to say about that. I support what he said. I'm behind that. I'd like to see that happen for my neighbors. And as far as your ICU and CCU, I would hate to lose that. I was so grateful that CCU was available and I was able to be stabilized here. And it's been almost a year and I haven't had to be hospitalized or admitted. That's because they got me stabilized. So I'd hate to have to go to Yakima or Seattle. Keep the CCU. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Another public comment?
Hi, my name is Sue Kendall. I live at 1900 North Alder Street, apartment 32 in Ellensburg. And I've worked in the with the recovering community all my life. I'm retired now, but I really appreciate and agree with the kinds of things that he's coming up with. I really like to see a detox center and a treatment center here in Ellensburg so people aren't forced to go to Yakima, and mental health services where we might have beds right here and don't have to ship them off in those oftentimes full beds. So anyway, I just hope that the hospital administration's listening and are behind these efforts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Or any other public comment before we proceed?
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. All right, we'll move along now to reports and dashboards, starting with, is Mandy here or somebody handling it?
I'm here.
Sorry, hi.
Hi.
Hi, Mandy. Yes, starting with Mandy Olson, Chief Quality Officer.
Yeah, sorry, I was a little late, so I missed roll call, but can everyone hear me okay? Not too echoey here, okay. So my dashboard, my report and dashboard are in the packet. I had a couple comments that I want to make on my report. So first, I talked about positive COVID cases declining with our employees. Unfortunately, in the last 2 days, we have had 4 employees positive, where in the previous 25 days, we'd only had 4. So we are seeing a bump, at least from the employee health perspective, just in the last week. So we're a little concerned about that, right? Our employees being ill with COVID still.
Mandy?
Yep.
Are you able to tell us whether those cases were related to each other or did they seem to be independent of each other?
They're not related to each other. So we're still seeing community spread when our employees are positive. It's from children or family gatherings and their vaccinated staff. It's
Okay, thank you.
yeah, they're not related to each other. So that's, any other questions kind of about employee health or COVID from a kind of employee health issue? I know Dr. Martin has some in his report as well. Okay, so then I just wanted to comment that I had in my report that Anna attended the infection prevention control boot camp for DMV put on that we sent her to. It was virtual, but she did get certified at the end of it, and she only missed one question. So, and she was, of course, arguing that the question was poorly worded and that she should have gotten it correct. But we're really proud of her for doing that. And then I usually in the past would try to add patient stories into my board report, and I didn't get the opportunity to type those up this time. So I wondered if I could read 3 quick patient compliments that we received in the month of February. If I see Erica nodding, so I'm gonna go for it. Okay, so we had someone tell us, we would like so much to thank the doctors and nurses who took care of our family member in the ER. Your care, exams, and tests are appreciated. We feel grateful for having such a great hospital in our county and the care you are providing. Special thanks to Dr. Emily Webb for adding the personal touch to a stressful situation. So that was an ER patient. They also recognized the RN Kara in the emergency department, who of course is a fabulous RN. And then we had a correspondence. My wife fell and fractured her hip. She was taken to KVH and had surgery by Dr. Mirich. She was grateful for the wonderful care she received at KVH. Dr. Mirich was wonderful and showed real care. He took the time to visit with me and show me the pre-surgical x-rays. He also phoned and had a lengthy conversation with me following the procedure. I was extremely impressed. All of the nurses, techs, support staff, OT, PT, social worker Ken Willis, Dr. Larson, Dr. Aurora, everyone was upbeat, caring, empathetic, and most professional. We both appreciate the follow-up assistance that we're receiving. We know this is going to be a lengthy recovery. Dr. Mirich prepared us both with what to expect in the next several weeks. We are grateful for the medical care KVH delivered when needed. And the last one I have tonight is, I appreciate your contribution, and this was to Julie Peterson, to the article KVH struggles with dangerously low staffing levels that appeared in the Daily Record. It deepened my appreciation for the work of medical workers in general and the tremendous challenges you are personally facing in your leadership role. I want to say thank you for all that you do. I hope you and yours have been able to keep safe and healthy. I communicate with KVH staff as a member of a liaison committee. We work with doctors, nurses, and other clinicians to ensure excellent patient experience for members of our congregations, some of who receive care at KVH. I recognize the tremendous impact of this unique medical crisis on the local healthcare system. Doubtless, your personal concerns have been outweighed by your concern for the well-being of your dedicated staff. Your self-sacrificing spirit to help others is a kindness that is truly extraordinary. The same applies to your staff. I want to personally thank you for your ongoing displays of empathy to all in our community. We do look forward to seeing you face to face in a safer future time. I thought those were really great communications we got from patients in February. And I'll take questions, and that's all I had to add to my report.
Thanks for that, Mandy. I just have a quick comment. You mentioned in your improvement opportunities about restraints, and I'm always asking about restraints.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's not one cause of it. But I mean, I've asked this question before. Do you know how we could get that on track so that we don't have missing orders, missing care plans, missing hourly documentation? Any idea for how we could address it?
I'd like to let Vicky comment on that, if anything, but I will say, because I was not at the meeting where Jeff was maybe discussing these particular cases. I will just remind everyone in February what was going on in the hospital. We were extremely full with COVID patients and non-COVID patients, and our staffing levels were difficult. I will say from the reviews that were done on these particular cases, it was 1 hour of documentation in one case that was like, days long, another one documentation of the restraints. It was the repeat orders for the restraints were done, but they were outside of the 4 hour window in 2 cases. And then there was only one time that it was missed. So I think a lot of it that we're seeing right here at this particular moment has to do with increasing patient care volumes. Not that that's okay or not something we're gonna work on. It's just, I think that's why that particular month is as bad as it is. I know
It's
there's-
good. No, I appreciate you putting it in context. Thank you.
Yeah, so I don't know, Vicky, if she has any comments on what we're doing.
No, I think you hit that on the nose. The other issue is a lot of new staff, a lot of agency staff that have to be brought alongside, and it's quite an extensive process when you put someone in restraints, and a lot of timeline that has to be adhered to as far as the documentation, and that's a struggle when we're dealing with onboarding a lot of different staff. So it's a combination. But what we're good to see is that there's no big trend to say, oh yeah, this is it. It's just kind of a little bit in all the little different areas. So it's hard to really.
And I just want to add with new staff, I think nursing staff in general is very familiar, right, with the standard, the requirements of putting someone in restraints and what you have to do as far as assessments and how you apply restraints and when it's appropriate and getting orders. What may be less familiar when you're coming to a new hospital or you have a traveler is how you document it there, right? Finding just the right spot to document or understanding how the task list is going to remind you or what order has to be put in place in Cerner that's going to then remind you. So I think that the traveler issue is less that they're providing the care appropriately and less like, do they know exactly where to document it in our system?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Question about Leanne Bolding.
Yeah.
Exciting development there. Will she be working with the hospital and the clinics, the entire organization?
Yep.
Nice.
Organization wide.
Very good, thank you.
Yes.
Do you have any other questions for Mandy? No, all right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Julie Peterson, Chief Executive Officer.
Yes, ma'am. I have some updates to my report. I mentioned in my report that our first leadership development cohort will include 3 people. I believe we're going to move that to 4, and I see Amanda Scott is nodding, so I think I'm on track there. So we've identified 4 individuals who've not only signaled that they're excited about accepting new responsibilities and looking for new roles at KVH, but we feel very strongly that they're exactly the sort of leadership that we want to develop. So that first cohort will probably include 4 people. There are some changes. I indicated that we had a draft for the Chelan retreat. There are some changes to that agenda in true KVH style. We had packed it way too full of things we wanted to talk about and accomplish. So this is the latest draft. Focuses on our strategic update, and then we spend a lot of time talking about this very chaotic workforce that we have right now. How do we create opportunity for KVH? How can we become the employer of choice so that in a world where people are moving around a lot and there are a lot of shortages, we can actually get it to work to our advantage. Michelle, Mitch Engel, and Dr. Martin and Dr. Hibbs have been working on a new position and provider recruitment strategy, so you'll see some of that. And then we were going to have Jeff do an update on cybersecurity, but instead on Friday morning, and I'll talk in a minute about the Vanderbilt case. On Friday morning, we are going to have some of our master trainers from the Team Steps program actually take the board through about 2.5-hour Team Steps training opportunity. So this is something, and the Vanderbilt case is the case where we had a nurse who had her license, she was stripped of her license and actually criminally prosecuted. It was down in Tennessee for medication errors that resulted in a patient's death. So you can imagine this has the attention of a lot of our clinical staff.
Prosecuted and convicted.
Correct, right. So on May 5th, we are going to have another virtual employee forum that focuses on the culture of safety. Does some deeper background on that case and why KVH is not Vanderbilt. What are the tools that we have? How do we report? How have we supported that culture of safety? We've asked Commissioner Altman to be at that meeting as the chair of the quality committee, so he'll be zooming in and available to answer questions there. But piggybacking on this event, we will be reinitiating that culture of safety training, more than likely using the Team Steps products, Team Steps training system. So as we prepare for that, on Friday morning at the retreat, we want to introduce or reintroduce the board to the tools that Team Steps calls out and the vocabulary, because 700 of your employees are going to be getting this training over the next several months. So that will be Friday morning, and it'll be a little more lighthearted than Jeff talking about ransomware and cybersecurity. So that's the agenda for the retreat as we see it now. I talked about the employee forum a little bit. I did want, this is really exciting, and we have begun the call out to employees who are bilingual to begin to get them certified as translators and also interpreters. Amanda, can you give an update on the ALTA program?
Yes, so we actually are really excited to say that we received a grant to cover part of the funds, which is really exciting, but we expected to invest in our staff with this as well. We have a deadline of May 31st, and we put out information to staff that are bilingual in English and Spanish, that they have 2 tracks for certification. They can either pursue the full medical interpreter certification, or they can do a language proficiency certification that we would pay for. As part of our career development, staff development, as you know, it's a big part of our strategic plan and workforce planning, but also patient access and making sure that we're providing a great experience for our patients with some credibility from a really prestigious certification, the ALTA certification that's very popular in healthcare. So I'm happy to say we've gotten a ton of interest already, at least 10 people, which we're really hoping for as our minimum goal for the grant funding, so that we could make sure we could use all those funds, but we really want to support as many employees as possible to go through this. We're also really excited that a lot of those staff that reached out, our clinic staff, part of the grant was really making sure that we have access for our rural health centers, because it was through the Rural Health Collaborative that we got the grant. And so we have lots of staff that express interest from all over the clinics, which is really great for frontline patient access. So we're really excited to see that develop.
The last thing I would mention, and I did mention it in my report, is beginning at the end of August, there's a conference here that I will be at, followed by some vacation. I'll be back a week or 10 days to another conference. So between the end of June and mid-August, I just have a very choppy calendar. I will not miss any board meetings, but I really don't like to do that to my schedule. So I'll be in and out a number of times between the end of June and August. And I'm happy to answer any other questions.
I have one quick thing, and Amanda, you may want to jump in here as well. A provider reached out to us and just about this, the strategic plan with the partnership and collaboration. It would be good also to, let's see, how do I phrase this? When we talk about supporting the work of our partners and embodying KVH culture and things like that, in addition to being community focused and patient focused, it might be good also to think about provider burnout and things like that. So just when you guys, when we're putting together the specific activities for the next year that are carrying out the strategic plan, we should keep in mind that that's also part of the partnership and collaboration, so we don't forget the employee in addition to the patient community. Amanda, does that, I mean, I didn't phrase that exactly well, but do you have anything to add to that? Because you know, we've had a little conversation about this by email.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, one of our providers was really great to engage in this conversation, just reached out, and they were in a leadership program themselves and just said that, you know, they're really interested in this topic and just of provider burnout and wellness, and really just was engaging in the topic. And so we're going to meet and kind of get some more information, but also talk about some of the work that we're doing. And I think a great context there in terms of our workforce and workforce planning and taking care of our team members. Physicians and providers are absolutely included in that. We've also been having some really great conversations, Dr. Hibbs and Dr. Martin and I, around this topic, and some leadership development for the physician leads and really supporting them as leaders in the organization, but also overall our provider engagement and how we can continue those efforts. And thank you for your support in that topic, Matt. I appreciate it.
I think, I can't speak for the rest of the board on this, but I imagine they'd probably agree that in the partnership and collaboration, even though it's not called out as explicitly as it might be, that we see this as, or I see this as also trying to support our employees, and not just, it's not just outward facing, but it's also about supporting the employees.
It kind of goes along with access too. Right?
Yeah.
So if we could,
If I may, burnout has been an issue that's so WSMA and WISHA frequently have CMO safe tables, meetings recently virtually, usually at CTAC quarterly. And every one of those meetings since I've been in this position is called out burnout. And there's been a wealth of information, and the original data or the original approach tended to be work smarter. And then it became a focus on resilience, which was often compared to teaching the canary in the coal mine how to do breathing exercises. Lately, the best, most sophisticated programs that I've seen focus on fulfillment and view burnout as a lack of fulfillment, getting obsessed with the day-to-day grind of the paperwork, the EHR, the frustrations. One of the things that a lot of providers describe as a source of fulfillment is teaching. And to that end, we've started really working to develop a more formal academic calendar here in coordination both with, we have agreements with something on the order of 30 institutions to do training here. 3 medical schools, the residency, 3 PA programs, and roughly a dozen or so nurse practitioner programs. It's actually enough of a contractual burden that I've been trying to cut the number back and focus on organizations in the Pacific Northwest. As part of that, we put together a calendar to try to make sure that anybody who wants to have a learner, anybody who finds that rewarding, I'm maximizing their exposure to students and residents. So UW knows when they can have a student in family medicine Ellensburg. PNWU knows when they can have a student, and some of those overlap. I've been working a lot with the 3 regional deans of the 3 medical schools in the state. And this is actually something I was going to mention as an addendum to my report, but it's relevant to your question. We've been really working to coordinate, and it's kind of interesting because as best I can tell, it's the only time those deans interact with each other. And they're excited about the idea of their students sharing space with students from other schools and cross-pollinating. And as part of that, on May 14th, we'll be doing a half-day faculty development workshop at CWU with faculty from each of the 3 medical schools. So we're doing it as a partnership between 5 organizations. Central is providing us with space. We're providing the learners, and the medical schools are providing the faculty. And we've opened it up to it's going to focus on how to integrate a student that you're precepting into a practice workflow or into a clinical workflow. How to identify early in a rotation whether somebody has a deficiency that can be addressed and how best to address it. And then looking at what are the current rubrics that are used to evaluate so that people feel like they know what they're grading on rather than, well, the hair was neat and they made you laugh. So that is something that we've been working on, and this is work that was foremost on my plate in December of 19. And we're just now starting to really resurrect it, but I'm really excited about the direction we're going in.
And one of the first things I mentioned when this issue was raised, I knew that this is really top of mind for you, Dr. Martin. And I mentioned that provider burnout. I just wanted to take this moment in the public meeting as, you know, as we've completed the strategic plan, just to emphasize that when we talk about supporting the work of our partners, that's a broad term and it includes our employees, including our providers. And I know that Jeff and Vicki and Amanda, we all worked on this together. That's meant to be a broad term, not only to talk about external partners, but also our employees. So as we move forward and implement the strategic plan, I just wanted to make sure we keep that in mind. Thank you.
Quick question, maybe for Amanda or Vicki, how many traveling nurses do we have?
Currently, we have 12,
Well, okay,
12 on long-term contracts.
yeah, and long-term is over 3 months or,
It's usually 12 to 13 weeks.
Okay.
And we've extended some of those for another edition, so it's
Yeah.
been quite.
okay, thank you.
Great. Any other questions for Julie? All right, thank you, Julie. Moving on to Chief Nursing Officer Vicki Mataro.
Hi, so my report's on 26. One of the things I was going to allude to was Bob's question, just to kind of keep you informed. We're still struggling, and Amanda can speak to this too, with recruitment of particularly RN staff and the patient care technicians, which are our nursing aides that really get the hands-on care at the bedside. We still are several positions short. We have had a little movement on the technician side, so that's good. But we have been able to get agency staff that, which is great because they're willing to extend so that we don't have to onboard new folks. So it's kind of good to keep the same folks. So we have that continuity. One of the other issues we're still dealing with are those difficult to place patients. So we're still struggling with nursing home availability and the transfers immediate to acute care patients that is much better. It's the long-term care kind of patients that we're still struggling to have dispositions. So our census has maintained really high on med-surg, which is great. And CCU has averaged about 3 to 4, which is above our norm. So post-COVID, we're hoping this is post-COVID. We're still remaining very busy. Any questions? Oh, Nurses Day is May 6th, next Friday, and FYI.
Very good. And if I'm not mistaken, there's an entire week with a specific day.
The following week is National Hospital Week.
Okay, great.
And so we'll be celebrating that as well, but we'll start with the Friday.
But the month of May is also Nurses Month.
Not at all, you know?
Yeah.
There's a lot to celebrate here at this hospital, that's for sure. All right, thank you. Chief Ancillary Officer Rhonda Holden.
Hello, everyone. As I mentioned in my report for our lab remodel, we did move our phlebotomy draw station into the old gift shop. We did that on Monday, which was quite hectic, but the staff have just done a great job adapting and taking it all in stride. So all in all, they're pretty upbeat and happy and using walkie-talkies to communicate with one another, thanks to engineering. They shared their walkie-talkies with us. I'll also say under the home health and hospice, our DOH surveyor didn't come back this week. She's coming next week. So we'll be quite busy having our Department of Health hospice survey and then also our 340B audit next week. So I'm going to try to figure out how to be in 2 places at one time. And as far as travelers go in home health, I have 2 RNs and physical therapist and occupational therapist, both on travel contracts. And we do have 2 med techs in the lab that are travelers also. Other than that, I don't think I have any updates, but I'm happy to take any questions.
It seems like that was a good deal for us, the DOH swapping out the ventilators.
Yes, very nice that they didn't say they wanted them back. They just swapped them out.
They wanted them back, but then to give us better ones, so. That's,
Yeah.
what will they, do we know, do they just warehouse the old ones, or are they kind of sunsetting them with the older technology?
No, they're, I think doing the biomedical check on them and probably updating the batteries and then issuing them. So they just cycled them out.
All right,
Rhonda, under pharmacy, you have a comment about receiving short dated items. Does that mean when we receive them, they're closer to their expiration date than we would like? Is that what that means?
Yeah.
And what leads to that happening? I mean, is it just they got backlogged somewhere and so stuff's getting older on the shelf, or is there a reason that that's happening?
No, I don't think there's any reason in particular for it. There's just shortages of everything, and you get to where you'll take whatever you can, but it doesn't always have as long of an expiration date as you would like.
Does that potentially lead to us throwing stuff out that gets too old to serve the public, or does it have a real impact on us?
Yeah, we can't use it past its noted expiration date. Sometimes we can rotate it with other hospitals and swap it out. We've done that at times. It just depends on what the product is and if someone else is needing it and willing to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
any other questions for Rhonda?
So can I jump in and officially introduce Stacy Olea in
Yes,
her
please
new role
do.
as chief of, so she looks familiar, but it's
Thank
a
you,
brand new
Rhonda.
role. So in the last couple of months, we have had 3 opportunities to promote people from within, which is a very, very gratifying thing. And really does signal the quality of folks that we have here at KVH. The first of those to start the domino effect was Stacy when she moved from her role as the Director of Diagnostic Services to Chief of Clinic Operations. So she's over at the Medical Arts Annex now, learning all things clinical and traveling between all of our different clinical services. So it is really exciting to have Stacy in that role. We have Kimmy now as the Director of Diagnostic Services, and Katie is over in Laboratory Services, both under Rhonda, learning their new roles and elbowing their way around looking for office space. So, but take it away.
Thank you. So I officially started my role April 4th, so I have not been here a month yet, but I've learned a lot and know I still have a lot more to go. For my report out, I wanted to talk a little bit about the MA apprenticeship program structure. We're excited with the addition of the MA coordinator, development coordinator. She's taken the apprenticeship program we have and actually put a really good learning structure in it. So all of our apprentice MAs now will rotate through different clinics. So they'll be able to spend time in peds, women's health, FME, specialty areas, and they'll also get dedicated time with Shelley, the development coordinator. So our goal is, yes, we have you in our apprenticeship program, and originally you would just stay at FME. You'd stay at one clinic location for that time. Our goal is, well, maybe you don't really like FME and you really enjoy pediatrics. We want to show you, we've got need for MAs everywhere. We want to show you the different opportunities we have available and make sure we get a right fit for you and for us. So we're really excited about what Shelley has done with that. You might have been impacted by the power outage in Ellensburg on Sunday, April 10th. We definitely were. It was the Medical Arts Building. And I got a phone call from the engineer on call saying, hey, we've got 6 refrigerator freezer alarms going off over at the MAC. So by the time we got the coolers together, he got ice from the kitchen crew. We showed up on site over at MAC. Temperature, the electricity had been restored. Temperatures had gone back up to range. What we had to do with that on Monday when our vaccine coordinator showed up, they had to check the temperature logs for how long the refrigerators were out, contact every single manufacturer and say, hey, we were out of range for 30 minutes. Is your vaccine still good? We were out of range for 2 hours. What we found is the Peds refrigerator was out of range the longest. We think some of that is because they do have a lot of vaccine in that refrigerator, and it is under the counter in an enclosed space. So we are working with Ron on some process improvement things. One of the things he's looking at is, can we get an alarm so that when the power cuts to the building, we can be proactive and get there before the refrigerators get out of range and get those vaccines moved over to the hospital. We talked a little bit about last month about the Insight pending log cleanup. Dr. Hibbs mentioned that. We had some pathology reports going back almost a year and longer. They investigated almost 1,200 reports. Only one abnormal result was found out of that, and the provider is following up with the patient. So now we're working with Shelley, the MA development coordinator, on the process going forward to make sure that these pending logs are checked on a regular basis. And then finally, customer service training, 36% of the clinic staff have completed the training. We are short-staffed in a lot of the clinics, but as we get staff in place, we want to make sure we get that number up significantly higher in the next couple months.
So can I just have you say out loud, almost all our PSR positions are filled?
Almost all our PSR positions are filled. So we're so excited about that. We're getting really good candidates for the PSRs, and those are really the front-facing customer service aspect of the clinic. So we're really excited those are. Where we're struggling right now are MAs and RNs.
I have a question related to the Insight section here, but this probably isn't for you. I'm just wondering, for imaging, I mean, maybe it was for you. For imaging, do we have pending logs just for various diagnostics and labs, imaging? Are there other logs that are waiting to be cleaned up, or?
There, for the laboratory though, I know the laboratory staff monitor, we have a pending log for everything we do on site and everything we do send out to LabCorp, because that is truly a function of the laboratory environment. The staff monitor those on a regular ongoing basis. What happened at the clinic is we just had so much turnover in the MA position, just pieces of that process had gotten lost and just was not followed up on. Imaging also, their PACS admin does look at reports that are still pending completion, meaning that report coming in from ONRAD. So they do have a pending piece that they also monitor.
So this seems to be an exception to this.
This is an exception. This is samples collected in the clinic setting that are sent directly out from the clinic to Insight Diagnostics. So they bypass the lab process. The clinic owns those. And it used to be paper before we went on Cerner. So when we moved to Cerner, made it electronic, some of those pieces, they had to get the lab functionality from Cerner. It just was not a very intuitive process for them. So we are trying to figure out how can we make that process easier for the clinic staff to monitor.
And this will be something that will be easier to maintain now that the cleanup has happened.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And Stacy, how long would you guess between when the power went out and when the first alarms went off?
I know, I think I got the call around 11. I'm thinking the power was out maybe around for an hour.
And is it fair to say we don't have any backup generators for that facility?
In the Mac building, there are no backup generators.
There's no generators in really any of the clinics. Cle Elum, Family Medicine Cle Elum does have one small section of the building that used to be the urgent care that has some generator backup there. But the problem is when you lose power to the building, the alarms can't dial out because they lose power. So we're looking at monitoring building power, and really probably we should monitor each circuit's power, because you could, pop a breaker or lose a power supply to something. So we'll look at monitoring each of those circuits, and then also put a small UPS on the controls that generate those alarms. So when the power goes out, it can still generate that alarm right away.
This would have been simple enough if it had happened, say, on a Thursday afternoon at 2, because it would have been immediately identified, but
It was a
Sunday.
extra challenge. It was hard. It was when nobody was actually at the clinic. And what started it before that, we got notification, the alarm is Dr. Wright went in to do some work. and contacted Angela and went, I can't turn any of the lights on in the building. Is the power out?
Oh, was it,
That was the Ellensburg power outage that Sunday.
this was not the automatic doors used for entry then, it was probably a back.
She was able to get in,
Okay,
but she wasn't able to turn any lights on.
guys, wow, all right.
What approximate value is at risk if, in a worst case scenario, if all those medicines were to go bad because of this sort of situation? Any sense of that?
It's pretty significant. Peds estimated their loss at almost $50,000.
Even as is, I mean,
Even as is, it was about $50,000 worth of product that we had to return back to Department of Health and have them replace.
We actually, Department of Health provides those to us free of charge though.
okay.
But it's still.
It has a value to the public.
It has.
But I think it's indicative of, we should commit at least some resources to solving this problem if it potentially could happen again.
Correct.
So,
And I would also mention that we identified during Snowmageddon up in Upper County, there are only the two healthcare facilities up there, urgent care and family medicine, Cle Elum. We are looking as part of emergency preparedness at the ability to consolidate services at one of those locations and supporting it with a backup generator.
when like Ron said, the UPS would be a start too, at least for transmitting information that something bad has happened. So
I think that this is not talking about delivery services. What does UPS stand for?
uninterrupted power supply.
Thank you.
So it continues some amount of electricity to the device in question, or in this case, a communication device to let the world know.
Oh, that seems smart. All right.
Thank you, Stacy. Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Yes, thank you. Moving on to Support Services, Chief Public Relations Officer, Michelle Worrell.
Hi, everybody. The first thing I wanted to do was just tag on to Matt's comment and Amanda and Dr. Martin regarding physician engagement and burnout. That is also actually a big part of the work that we're starting to look at in our area on physician outreach and engagement. Like Dr. Martin said, this was something we started in late 2019 and 2020 and got derailed like everything else. And I actually have a nice 2-hour planning session tomorrow to really kind of outline some plans on what we can do in bringing the medical staff back together in both a professional capacity so that they can work together, exchange ideas, know services, things like that, but also on that personal capacity to develop relationships and help with some of those stressful burnout ideas. So that too is in the works. I just wanted to let you know.
I don't know if this is going to help with burnout, but it would, at some point, we should have a provider appreciation.
Absolutely, that'll come back. So the plan is for that to be back in its the same timeframe in 2023 that we've had it, so right around Doctor's Day. But we are working at putting something together before that, really on the collaborative side and to reboot this effort. So couldn't agree with you more. I will also, along those lines, we do have a date set for the KVH Employee Appreciation Event that we had to defer last year. So December 3rd, we do have the ballroom reserved at CWU, and we'll start planning that process. Those are that event. Those are my 2 updates to the report. I did include this. This was the month to give you a quarterly update on activities and plans within the department. And then I also thought it was important to show you, I just can't say enough good things about our new digital marketer, Kirsten. She has been phenomenal in taking on this role and in updating our website and just making it a lot more user-friendly, accurate, and then in the background, more searchable, better results for the public to see it, more engaging. And one of the things that I tasked her with is to really put together a content calendar on the social media side. And so we could have a plan on what was going forward and really track that activity. So I gave you an idea in the board each month. She's got her content calendar and I can go in and see what posts she has planned. Obviously, we can add new things to that. And then once it's executed, it shows up on a calendar view so we know exactly what we were hitting when. And so just really excited with the work that she's doing. So I wanted to call that out. And I would be happy to take any questions you have.
Michelle, do you know what time District 2's open house is on Monday the 16th?
Sure do. It is 3 to 5.
3 to 5. All right, excellent. Thank you.
That is the same day as their board meeting. So if you want to stick around for their board meeting, that'll be happening immediately after that.
Do they still meet in the same room as always?
So they're meeting in Station 99 now.
Oh, fantastic for them.
So yeah, you do. I would encourage any of you who can make that meeting, you will get a tour of their new ambulance station that smells just like a new car. And you can see the rigs, the crew will be there, and it gives you an opportunity to chat with the 5 Hospital District 2 commissioners. I will be out of town at a conference, but I believe Rhonda and Scott will be representing the admin team that is contracted to Hospital District 2.
Yes, I will be there.
I will
Put this
also.
on the calendar. Thank you very much.
Awesome. And I hope you also saw, we are having the delayed retirement celebration for Dr. Elise Herman. That is, I just threw my sticky away, but it is in the report. It is on Sunday, May 15th. So right before the open house in Cle Elum, at the park just east of KVH. I don't have the name in front of me, but you'll get it in an invitation either later tonight or tomorrow. And so we would welcome you to come to that. She really wanted to do it outdoors and make it kid friendly. And so that's why we're going to be at the park and just say thanks for her 31 years of service to the community.
Is it Mountain View Park with the
That sounds right.
Yeah.
hockey fields?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what time that is? Did you mention that?
I know you're going to ask that, and I don't have it right in front of me. But
All right, we're gonna get invitations.
That'll be great.
Yeah,
So-
exactly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are
Any
you optimistic it's gonna warm up by then?
Trust me when I said, we went back and forth, and she was really adamant that this is the best day. So it's gonna be on our side.
Or layers.
Yeah.
There you go.
Any other questions for Michelle? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Chief Information Officer Jeff Yamada.
Welcome, everyone. So my report starts on page 37, I believe. Really just to add, IT has been very busy. I think we currently have about 30 projects in process, various stages. As you know, we've been active in our cybersecurity training, as well as email phishing. We are doing a lot behind the scenes as far as protecting KVH in our cybersecurity with our CrowdStrike and some of the other implementations that we've recently done to monitor anything that's coming in. Help desk tickets have been increasing. More and more help desk tickets are opened every day now. I think we're up to about 60 a day. So the IT support staff have been very busy in trying to get those resolved very quickly for our end users as well. And so I think those are the biggies that I have. Any questions?
Do you have a ballpark timeline for when single sign-on will be implemented, up and running?
Yeah, we're hoping probably by the end of the year. We have a pilot going right now. We actually have one workstation currently working in IT that we're testing. I think as of today, they were able to set up Cerner within the single sign-on badge tap, which was big. We still have a fairly large capital budget to go through. So this is just a pilot. So we bought some equipment to be able to run the pilot, and we'll do a pilot probably in FBP with about 15 computers. Once we have that pretty much proof of concept nailed out, then we need to purchase more capital to get the entire organization on single sign-on badge tap. So So kind of a two-phaser.
Is it anticipated that all staff members will have access to single sign-on?
It'll probably be rolled out into a lot of the clinical areas where people move from workstation to workstation, which is the purpose of kind of the single sign-on.
I think the emergency department is particularly interested in this.
Yep. Yeah, they'd probably be one of the first rollouts that we do for the organization, so.
I feel like we need to celebrate in some way. Sure. Yeah, that's gonna save a lot of keystrokes. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of things, you know, obviously, as you know, going on behind the scenes, trying to get everything right. One of the things, you know, from past experience in implementing this before is you got to get it right the first time. And so we're trying to make sure that when we do this, everything is in place. We have redundancy. So part of the equipment that we'll be asking for in the future has redundancy. So if like our data center goes down, we'll still be able to run with the equipment that will be located at Radio Hill or vice versa. So it's a lot going on to get that design right.
Any questions for Jeff? Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief of Facilities, Ron Urlacher.
Hello, everybody. On the project list, only just a couple updates on that. We've got confirmation on the cafe project that on June 3rd, they're going to mob in on that and start setting up containment. And then the following week, we're going to be underway on that. So that's confirmed. And then that's the medical arts power monitoring project. We're in the middle of working on that and seeing getting that designed and seeing what kind of cost that's going to take to do that. So that's added to my project list. Other than that, that's pretty much its current. So I don't know if anybody has any questions on any of those projects.
When we review the update on the strategic plan at the retreat, we intend to carve out some specific time for Ron so that he can give you a more complete update on where we are with all the projects.
Okay. Questions for Ron? All right, thank you, Ron.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's see, on to medical staff. Chief of Staff, Dr. Timothy O'Brien. There's been a request that we reserve these for executive session for the credentialing. So hang around with us for that.
I was expecting that.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you. Do you have anything else for us before we proceed? No. Okay. Chief Medical Officer Kevin Martin.
So the two additions that I had to my report, one was talking about the faculty development workshop that's coming up. The other is just when I wrote this report a week ago, we were starting to see possibly an inflection point in both case numbers and COVID hospitalization rates. This morning, there was a published report that COVID hospitalizations in the state of Washington are up 9% over the last 14 days. That's consistent with the thrice annually surges that we've seen up to now. It's too early to say. We aren't seeing the kind of steep uptick that we've seen in hospitalizations, what we saw at the beginning of Omicron. So there is some validity to the idea that BA.2.12.1 is causing less severe disease. Again, the original Omicron surge, we saw a quarter of the hospitalization rate that we saw with Delta, but we saw 6 times as many cases. So we had 150% the number of hospitalizations. The next 2 to 3 weeks will be telling. The other addition to the report, I mentioned in the report that Reddy had disbanded the regional triage teams. The Rural Health Collaborative is going ahead with the Rural Ethics Committee resource, which may wind up getting pressed into some of the same service if necessary. But we'll be sending out applications to all of the folks that were involved in RTT to participate in that, and I'll be the first chair.
So when you were talking about the increase in the COVID administrations in the hospital, did you say, is that the new variant that's causing the increase, or is it
Yes.
still the Omicron?
Well, so Omicron now is subdivided into BA2, BA2, 12.1, BA3, BA4, and BA5. BA2 displaced BA1 nationwide in the space of 6 weeks. BA2 12.1 is doing exactly the same thing. So it's demonstrating that it's far more transmissible than its parent BA2. The other subvariants aren't really showing up. There are things that have been isolated but aren't seen to be spreading widely. And in the past, I included the graph from CDC in the report that showed what percentage was which variant. I didn't do that this time because a week ago, the answer was it's all BA2. Now they've gone back and reanalyzed it, and BA2.12.1 becomes significant about 3 weeks ago. And as of yesterday, was roughly 40% of cases nationally.
Are these people, a majority of the people that are being, are they vaccinated?
So one of the things that we knew would happen was that if most of the population, if essentially all of the population is vaccinated, most of the cases will be in vaccinated people. That said, we are seeing breakthrough. We're still, the most recent data I've seen was still suggesting that vaccination was preventing hospitalization. Given that we're about 3-4 weeks into BA2.12.1 and that hospitalization follows 2 weeks behind case rate, it's probably too early to say definitively what impact vaccination has. There is also some hope that Omicron in general served as vaccination for the unwilling. Again, as of my report, we're all the way up to 51.2% of Kittitas County being fully vaccinated. And statewide, we're seeing that number increase by about 0.1% a week. And that's consistent with our numbers here. And that makes sense. People who were willing to get vaccinated early got vaccinated early. There are a few late adopters that are coming in, but for the most part, we did a good enough job of making vaccines available as soon as we could get them. But
yeah, I'm seeing quite a few people getting their second booster now too.
yeah, we're seeing a dozen doses a day
For the second booster?
well, total.
Oh,
Just kind of ballpark. So it remains to be seen what impact that'll have on operations. Ron knows how to put up a tunnel if we need it.
Interestingly,
10 out of 10.
in New York, they studied young children who never got vaccinated, and 75% of them have immunity.
75% of what?
Of the children have immunity to COVID-19.
Oh,
Children who were not vaccinated, but
Correct.
still acquired immunity probably through exposure. Is
Yep.
that
yeah.
There's a front page of the Daily Record today, I just started.
Is it in there? Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting,
so?
not unexpected.
Yeah. So the phrase that I've been using in my report for the last couple of months is guarded optimism. It may be that the guards need to be armed. But it's going to be an interesting couple, 3 weeks.
When we talk about hospitalization numbers, this is only for admits, is that correct? If somebody is treated in the emergency department and released, they don't even hit the radar?
Correct.
Here's another interesting finding, is that retrospectively, looking at hospitalizations of patients with COVID-19, they're finding that a large number of those hospitalizations were not due to COVID-19, were due to normal causes. but then were just tested on admission and tested positive. So all these quote hospitalizations for COVID-19, it's way overestimated.
You might argue with or for some of those.
Therefore, yeah, there you go.
We haven't, well, the interesting thing is that even though we haven't seen much COVID in the hospital, as Vicki alluded, we have seen high volumes. And how much of that is delayed care is an open question.
I just want to chime in real fast. Even if that data at the state level doesn't include ER admissions or ER care, we do review, Anna reviews all of the care in the emergency department for infectious diseases and looks at that. So we know all of the volumes in the emergency department and urgent care where there was influenza or COVID-like illness, so respiratory illness, as well as positives. And in our hospital, we have seen some of those incidental findings of COVID as well, that Dr. O'Brien's talking about.
Mandy, when you say that you review that data, is that data just for our hospital or is there a dashboard statewide that you have access to?
No, it's just ours. It comes from a report that we have built to look for complaint, the reason for visit and pulls patients. And Anna does look at every single patient that comes in through the ER and our hospital too, because that's what her love is infection control surveillance. So we see that, but it's not on a comparison with the state.
Is there any anticipated change to the masking requirements in the hospital facilities? Yeah, we don't know when what OSHA will say when. There's some thought that they would probably say something this week, but they are looking at the same data that we're seeing, and they may be backpedaling.
Are they pressured at all by what the airlines have done?
Yes.
Okay, I thought that might be the case. All right. Other questions for Dr. Martin? All right, thank you. Chief Financial Officer, Scott Lander.
Thank you. My report starts on 50, but if we would advance to page 53, the statistical portion of the report, we start there, and you see the stats correspond with what Vicki had reported about inpatient admissions and inpatient patient days being up, and that is true and reflected in these numbers. We had a 34.3% positive variance on inpatient days. There is a bit of a change in the days as our med surg unit is quite full and consistently full, and ICU volumes are down. And so some of the positive variances that we had on revenue variances are not quite as great for inpatient as they were because we don't have as many ICU patients, and the charges related to an ICU patient are nearly twice as much as a med surg patient. So lines 1 and 2, you'll see nice positive variances. We are right at trending with budget on deliveries for this year. And you see on lines 11 and 12, inpatient surgeries slightly over budget, outpatient surgeries just a tad below, and then GI procedures exceeded budget. ER visits for the month were a little lower, as were urgent care. Lab volumes were a little slower, as were radiology. Down on line 28, clinic visits were up nicely for the month, 6.7% positive variance, and then almost 3% year to date. And then you see, if you look at the last, compare things to the last column on the prior year, we're doing well relative to prior year. And then if we will go over to the revenue and expense statement on page 55. You see a positive variance on inpatient revenue, still a negative variance on outpatient revenue, and this corresponds with the stats that you're seeing. And then a positive revenue on professional fee variance. The one thing that I would point out on year to date and compare inpatient revenue year to date is 7.5 million versus a budget of 6.2. But if you compare that with what we're doing the year before at $5.3 million, our percentage of inpatient revenue is 4% greater in 2022 than it was in 2021. KVH is reimbursed at a higher rate for inpatient care than we are for outpatient care. And so this is one of the factors that some of the positive financial results, even though we've got a 5% negative variance on our revenue variance year to date, we are still doing fairly well because we're being paid at a higher rate than we had expected. And I would also say that this is positive for the patients, also because the inpatient deductibles are often, generally speaking, for Medicare patients, they are lower than they are for the outpatient co-payer deductibles. So this is, I would consider this a win-win for patients and KVH. So we're, just to give you a foreshadow, although we were a little over $1 million below budget on revenue for the month of March, we're trending pretty close to budget for April revenue. So April's looking fairly good. On overall expenses, we had some overall expenses for the month, $147,000 below budget. We have some negative variances on temporary labor, the 12 contractor or temporary staff that Vicki had alluded to. You will see some of those excess variances on temporary labor. And then we have on the professional fee line, there's we had locums for pediatrics due to a medical leave. We had locums for a women's health, and we had ENT also. And so that's the reason for the professional fee variance. And the last negative variance relates to insurance. And we have our insurance rates effective the 1st of March have gone up substantially for the KVH. And so this negative trend that you're going to see for the month of February on insurance, that's going to continue. We budgeted for an increase. We didn't come close to budgeting for what the actual increase was.
Is that liability type insurance?
Yes. So we ended up, I would also just say that the RPG, the hospitalist group that is managing inpatient care for us, is much more willing to keep patients here locally, and then also categorize them as admit them to the hospital rather than admit them as observation. We're not having the other factor that is related to overall revenue performance is patients that had Kaiser all shifted to a different insurance, and that reimburses KVH at a significantly higher rate than was Kaiser. And then we're also not dealing with near the number of denials and downcoding that Kaiser was doing for ER cases.
So that's good to hear that it was, that we're avoiding those problems, that it wasn't like a worthless move, I guess. It sounds like it's paying off.
That was very beneficial for the community and for our finances.
I was going to say, the conversation Scott and I had with Kaiser had nothing to do with finance. It was about values and about where care should be given.
Yeah, right. I mean,
reimbursement better is just a cherry on top.
Yeah.
Just the reason for the change was fundamentally we were not aligned. We believe in providing care locally. Kaiser believes in shifting care over to the west side.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, the denials and trying to move people out of the community. Yeah, I mean, is there a way to let people know? other than this meeting? Because it seems like there was some pushback.
Yeah.
with the announcement.
So we had a reach out from Kaiser a month or so ago. And they were wanting to know if it was possible to re-engage with us. We very deliberately invited Kaiser to come to this meeting and talk about how they would be in more alignment and would be better partners. They didn't take us up on that. But the person we were talking to is new to the community, new to the job. So she's probably doing a lot of this. I would say where that conversation is happening more frequently is with the HR folks. So as they go into their employee, what are they called? Roundups at the end of the year where they're signing up, open enrollment, thank you. I knew it wasn't roundup. So our HR, but we had an opportunity to have that conversation. So that I think as people came in to sign up, they were told that.
So Scott, I see the interest has gone up a tad over budget. Is that due to the increase in interest rates that's going on?
No, it's probably just we spread the budget a little inaccurately is all.
Oh, okay.
It's,
All right, well, that's good.
our interest rates are fixed right now, you know.
Fixed right now?
Oh, but actually, well, they're fixed, but there was one that stepped up just a little bit, but I think it was just, we may not have spread things quite as.
Well, I mean, it only went up a tab, $1,258, which is not that much, but just interesting to see that starting to pop.
So we had an operating income of the month of 873,000, year to date for operator 1.5 million. So we're almost trending with budget. And then down in the non-operating expense is we have unrealized losses related to the bonds that we have. So we ended up with a net income of 433,000. And year to date, we're at 599,000. But all in all, a pretty good financial report, given, we were shut down for 5 weeks or so with surgery. So it could have been much worse. To be profitable at this point, I feel really pretty good about it.
Scott, quick question about Kaiser and our staffing, because I know it seemed like Kaiser took a lot of effort, and now that they're not as involved with what we do, are you seeing our staff freed up more to focus on anything? I mean, is that even measurable or noticeable? Or?
It's yes and no. It's measurable. I can tell you, right, some of the things that we struggled with timely billing. You saw larger numbers right now. In 2021, for out of timely billing denials, we were averaging 153,000 a month. For the first 3 months of 22, we're at 12,000 a month. That is a
those are funds we're realizing because we're not having such this friction.
I'm not going to say we're completely out of the woods with all the issues that we have there, but we have, with no prior authorizations, we were averaging $37,000 a month in denials related to that. We're at 19,500 right now. We are not medically necessary. We were averaging about 53,000, almost 15,600 a month. In 2021, we're at 3,000 a month right now. So yeah, I think there's positive correlation, but although I can't necessarily have a direct one-on-one.
The other metric that you might expect that to play into is on the clinic quality dashboard, the days in referral completion. Because usually the denials that Scott's talking about require staff to call back. And once you invest the time, they say, oh, we didn't mean it. It's just a speed bump that's put there to make it harder for clinicians to refer people for care.
And it stretches out the time before the person can get the proper care because they're fighting with the insurance company. Great. Thank you. Very informative.
Thank you. And then if you just bounce over to page 54, this is the kind of the visual of the dashboard. And you see that our days in accounts receivable. They're at 60, but I would say they're actually 59.7.
Oh, yay.
Just to be precise.
And I appreciate that about you.
I've written it down on mine, so I don't forget.
Well, it was worth.
Right.
Nice.
And then you see positive trends on the payer mix, and then our cash position continues to be good. And so very solid month and balance sheet continues to be. And then we had, I provided, this is a kind of a continuation of Ron's comments about quarterly capital report. There is a narrative, just we've, on the lab renovation, we've spent $889,000 year to date on the lab renovation. This is on page 58, excuse me. On the cafe remodel, we've invested so far almost $127,000 year to date. On the energy efficiency project, that all these are new lights. I don't know if you can tell that it's brighter in here.
Did I not say that? As soon as I came in, I said, it's brighter
It's
here.
different.
Is it because it's lighter outside now? I just don't think that's it. I noticed. It's very nice.
New LED lights, and this is, so on the energy efficiency project through March.
Yeah, you were right.
Through March, we've spent $300 and almost $54,000. In the next 2 months, the rest, the LED lights will throughout the hospital will be replaced if he can ever free up a patient room to get for the folks to get into a patient room. I think they have gone through maternity. So there will be continue. The LED portion of this energy efficiency is going to be about $600,000. And then after they're done with the LED, then we're going to do the domestic hot water system for another $500,000. So we're spending quite a bit of money on, this is a capital that was approved prior, but, and this project will continue into 22 and into 23. There's a timeline on page 59 and 60. And then the campus redesign, we've spent $113,000 so far.
And I'll just say there's a lot of calls for new carpet now that the lights are bright.
Were these fluorescent previously, or were they?
They were fluorescent previously, correct, Ron?
There were three.
Yeah, they were almost everything they're replacing was fluorescent.
Not all heroes wear capes. These are great. Thank you for that.
So any questions about the March financials or anything that I can answer, or capital we're doing? And thankfully I've got Ron here to ask.
No, really good. Thank you.
Okay, then on page 61 and 62 is Mitchell Grant's report. And as we reported last month, we were working with a local daycare provider. We were awarded, or the daycare provider was awarded a adult commerce grant for $1 million to help. We're working with a community partner for daycare. And then you see that Mitchell is working with our local KCHN. And so we've applied for a couple of SAMHSA grants and HRSA grants to work with opioid planning and planning opioid implementation. So that's work that is ongoing, collaborative work with KCHN to try to address some of the community problems that we have.
And if any of those grants were approved, how would we see it in the community? How would that money be spent? Do you have any idea yet?
Well, we have, Julie, go ahead.
Yeah, so Kittitas County Health Network has secured a number of grants over the last couple of years, and they're in the old library building. We were out looking at the I think they pay us $100 a month to be there. They are out of space over there. They've hired a number of case managers who are out in the community supporting folks in the community. They're working on the, help me out here, the jail project.
There's a MAP program with the jail, and that's ongoing.
The jail. So a lot of different work. They're hiring community health workers, case workers, folks that are out there that are doing a number of different grant activities with the same workforce. So we are looking at moving KCHN into the medical arts annex because they're outgrowing that space, and Vicki has some really exciting plans for that space for some patient care. But that's how we're seeing it. They're out in the community supporting, they have access to some food resources. They work with the A-team to really bring the organizations, that social determinant organizations together. So
The other thing that they've been doing with that grant money is really bringing together the Kittitas County Community Recovery Center, Merit, Comprehensive Mental Health, and really helping to unify the way that we can address some of the more profound needs.
And so these grants have been applied for, that would just help further what they're already kind of has underway and so forth.
And it feels like KCHN is sort of at that tipping point where they've really sort of achieved some scope and some efficiencies in the work that they're doing. We also have Dr. Azriel, who's both Ellensburg and Cle Elum now, working on MAT education and MAT programs. So
For viewers at home, MAT stands for
Medication assisted.
medication assisted therapy, which is directed at
Substance use.
substance use. Thank you.
So, Mitchell's doing a lot of work, and we've been successful in some grant applications, and we're getting better at it.
Can we give them a bonus in tomorrow's paycheck?
I saw in
We can
the,
write a grant for that.
Yeah, I feel and many others are
getting retention.
attention.
I saw in the announcements that the childcare partnership had been introduced. So I know it's probably early to ask about if there's been any feedback on that, but has anybody reached out with questions asking about kind of nuts and bolts or how that works?
And Scott?
I actually, right before we announced it, I actually got an email from a manager who, was kind of desperately looking for help for one of their employees, and they didn't know about this benefit coming, and said she doesn't know what to do. I think it was she wasn't sure if she could keep her job because she wasn't having childcare access, any luck with childcare access. And I was able to tell her that actually we're communicating this. So I haven't had any feedback yet, just because it just went out into the announcements. But for those that I've been in discussion with, it's been great feedback. We had childcare work groups going on during COVID, if you remember, and I think we heard this loud and clear, and so we're really excited to help with it.
Excellent.
So anyway, the work that Mitchell does, sometimes KVH has benefited directly. Sometimes it's District 2 that has benefited directly. Sometimes it's, I think, through KCHN, the whole community has benefited directly, and with the daycare, the whole community has benefited. So this was a really good decision to have a grant writer, and we've got a good one.
Yeah, we did.
And then the last thing that I have is a resolution related to surplus property. And there is if we proceed with the campus renovation, there's going to be some excess river rock, excess trees and lumber, excess bushes, shrubs.
Surplus of bush.
You are surplusing rocks and
You
bushes.
can apparently depreciate it also.
I didn't know bushes could be obsolete.
Ours are.
Yes, they are, very much so.
And some of the birch trees over on Spokane Street are, if you clearly obsolete. By some of them are pretty dead.
Do you need a motion for this, Scott?
This requires a motion,
Yes.
or yes, it does.
I would move to approve the resolution 22-05.
A second.
Moved by John and seconded by Matt. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay.
Thank you.
Passes.
Who has the original resolution? Here.
Yeah, I've got that over there. It's signed.
Thank you. That is all I have.
Any other questions for Scott? Thank you. Education and board reports. Do you have anything for that? I don't have anything here.
I would say is we have the HA Leadership Summit coming up towards the end of July. That's the one that we have our leadership development team going to, and I believe Commissioner Ford is still considering whether you're going to make.
Yeah,
it.
it's just have one thing in my life. I have to see if the schedule fits. Otherwise, I'd like to join that group.
So it's a conference that I have never attended before, but I hear really, really good things about it. So.
In San Diego. Oh, I might think about that too.
All right, old business, joint strategic planning meeting for Hospital District 1 and Hospital District 2. Are you speaking for that?
We just got the strategic plan for Hospital District 2 finalized last month. The open house is in May, and then we will revisit it probably around service development on the main campus there in Cleveland.
So when are we thinking that this might happen?
I don't have a time frame. That's when, given the topic, we want to go in with, we don't want a sheet of paper. We want some ideas of the direction that we're asking for the two boards. Again, just as a reminder, any operations we have in Hospital District 2, we have to get the authority of Hospital District 2 to provide those. So they've had the conversation about the services that they want to see delivered in Hospital District 2. We need to see how that marries up strategically with what Hospital District 1 is looking to do.
Okay. New business? New business. All right, before we recess, I have a question. Future meetings, May 26th, this is a special meeting. Is it special?
No.
It's
sorry
regular.
about that.
Okay, I mean, they're all special. They're great, but it's a regular special meeting.
Regular.
That's the fourth Thursday of May.
Perfect, okay. All right. If there's nothing else, we'll recess to executive session. Click to discuss personnel per RCW 42.30.110.
Can I also, to future meetings, point out that the retreat, the 18th, 19th, and 20th will also be a public meeting.
Oh, great.
So you hang that on the door wherever we are.
Let the record state that that is a public meeting in Chelan.
Also
And that will be a special meeting.
a meeting. Board.
Very special and very, okay. All right, how long do you think we need for?
My information, I would say I need about 40 minutes. I don't know what you need on the chief of staff side.
Found it to an hour.
Hour?
Yeah.
All right, should we recess until 7:25? And then we will plan to reconvene at 8:25.
Are you expecting action?
Yes.
Yes.
And I would ask, in addition, obviously, to Dr. O'Brien needing to be here, that Dr. Martin stay as well. I think that's it.
So much, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Wonderful evening.
Thank you.